Jamey from Stonemeyer Games, and I'm happy to be here on, what is it, April 19th. April 19th, a beautiful day here in St. Louis. Yesterday was beautiful as well, and I'm hoping to get outside a little bit today and do some online gaming tonight. Tonight is my online game night. Actually, I already got in a playtest of a game this morning. Megan was kind enough to playtest with me. We had a little fun with a short game that I'm experimenting with. And what else is going on? I hope you're doing well. Chad's popping in to say hi here. Hi, Chad. I hope you're doing well. I had a nice chat yesterday with Jennifer over on the Mayvina YouTube channel. I actually don't know the meaning behind Mayvina, but Jennifer, it was wonderful to talk to Jennifer about representation in games, about civilization games, some Stonemaier games that she isn't a fan of, which really delighted me that she felt very free to share that with me. We just had a lovely chat yesterday. I put that up on the Stonemaier Games Facebook page in case you want to check out that chat after this live cast. Hey, George. Hey, Steven. I hope you're doing well. Today, I am playing a game after this called Stroganoff. I don't know if you've heard of that. I haven't heard much about it, but the art looks really cool, and a friend volunteered to teach it. So I'm going to be learning and playing that after this live cast during lunch today. And I've also played recently Steam Up. I played the new version of Ra. I played Codenames, Stellar, which actually was recommended by people on this live cast. I did get a copy of Stellar and played my first game. Really enjoyed it. A neat type of two-player game that isn't a dueling game. It's a two-player game, but not dueling in any way. And a game called La Plateau, a French, I believe it's French, or at least it has a French name, trick-taking game with a neat spatial element that my friend Pete brought to game night the other day. Yeah, so played a lot of games. I have videos about most of them. Hey, Ray, Chad says he likes beef stroganoff. Yeah, I think this game is a little bit different, but maybe there will be a beef stroganoff reference in the game. I also had my college reunion. I talked about this a little bit last week, that I had my 20th college reunion coming up. And six friends, six other people, I think it was seven total people that I knew pretty well from my freshman floor. They all came to town and we hung out. It started out as freshman floor friends, also carried on to other years in college and beyond. Three of us live in St. Louis, and the other four came in from out of town. And we had a great time hanging out, catching up, and just playing some games. We played only a few games. Played Codenames was the only game that we played. I think I had some stuff to do on Sunday, but they got together for another game then. But yeah, it was really good to see them for a few meals, a few chats, and I really appreciate the out of towners coming into town for that. And it was a good discussion last week, I think, about the college experience, college choices and regrets and all that. My question of the day today has nothing to do with college. It has to do with leadership to a certain extent. Um, it's something that's been on my mind recently, and I won't reference specifically what. It isn't about my coworkers. It's about something else. It's about how, if you have someone who is doing a task for you, whether it's paid or volunteer, how do you inspire that person to speak up if uh, if they think there's a better way to do it, or if they think that the way the task is being done is is not right? What are your thoughts on inspiring people to speak up in those instances rather than just doing the task as prescribed? Whether this is a matter of you giving them directions that they're doing it by the letter, but something in it seems a little off, uh, and they either speak up or they don't speak up, or it's some other type of task. Like I want to get, I won't say an example here because I don't want to give away exactly what it is, but just something that is not intuitive. Because I think, honestly, I've seen this happen with a number of independent contractors in particular, where something is done that just really, if you step back and took a look at it, you'd be like, this doesn't make sense that I'm doing this, or that I'm repeating this thing that doesn't make sense. How do you inspire someone in that instance to make an intuitive decision, basically, and to step up and actually say something, to identify something that doesn't make sense and to say something? That's something I've been pondering lately that I've been trying to figure out. Like, do you reward them when they do it? Do you not punish is a strong word, but do you offer a strong disincentive for them to not do it? And I think almost this goes beyond that. I don't know. Obviously, I'm talking out loud. I don't. I've been trying to figure out a blog entry about this, but if you have any thoughts about it, I'd love your thoughts on that topic. Chad says it was so great to see the watch it played video for Expeditions. It oddly makes the game feel even more real. Looking forward to it. Brian and Suzanne are also popping in to say hi. Chad, I totally agree. Yeah, it's Rodney's been working on that for almost a month now. We sent him in a very early advanced copy of the game, a pre-production copy that is visually identical to the final version, aside from a few like tokens being off center, little things like that. But yeah, Rodney provides an amazing service to publishers, yeah, to create these rules videos to give people a very good feel for how a game works. Really, you don't they're rules replacements videos, which is incredible. This is not a reflection on Expeditions being ahead of schedule or anything. It's right on schedule right now, where we have one more month of production, and then hopefully, if freight shipping goes well, it means that we will start fulfillment in mid-July. That might vary slightly by region, might be a little bit earlier than that, a little bit later for some regions, possibly, but ideally mid-July for fulfillment of Expeditions if you've already pre-ordered it. And then we'll wait, as usual, we'll wait to do kind of the launch version of it after it's already arrived at fulfillment centers. And at a time where we can say, hey, like this thing is in stock right now, you can get it and know that it'll be shipped within a few weeks. So that'll happen probably in early July, or maybe actually, this is an experiment. Maybe we won't have something like that for Expeditions. Maybe it'll just be an ongoing pre-order until it's fulfilled. I don't know. It's kind of an experiment along the way. Steven says the best way to teach is to lead by example. I definitely agree with that, Stephen. I don't know if I'm sure it applies in some circumstances to what I'm describing here. But I would say oftentimes where I've seen this happen, it's very hands off. We've assigned a task to an independent contractor or even a contracting service who is then asking other people to do a specific task, oftentimes a repetitive task. The people who are working on the task are never going to see me doing the same task. So I don't know, I'm being very vague here intentionally. And maybe I should find an example of something that I've done for it. But yeah, I don't know. I'll stay vague for now. Chad says, I have a question about the weight of Expeditions. While designing Expeditions, did you feel that you needed to add or reduce the weight of the game to fit more with the weight of Scythe? That's a good question. I certainly was looking to Scythe for both inspiration and because I wanted the Scythe audience to kind of be the target audience for Expeditions. And so I was looking for a game to be a similar weight to Scythe. Yeah, in the back of my head, maybe that was a factor, but really, that was kind of the target. And then I was just trying to design the best game that I could around the mechanisms that were the most fun for the game. And that felt right. So weight probably factored in subconsciously, but not all that much into the end decisions about what's actually staying in the game because it's fun and it works really well and it's balanced. Yeah, and intuitive. Hey, Tony. Oh, hey, Brian has an answer. He says, I think empowerment is key, which isn't a quick one-step culture to develop. For me, starting with vulnerability, like the boss leader does not have all the answers, helps. And then I find literally asking people to bring those ideas and question the status quo. Brian, you bring up a great point here. I think one thing that could work for the situation I'm describing here is for me to ask questions to the people who I'm assigning these tasks. Ask them to ask them if they're doing something that isn't intuitive. Ask them if there's a better way. If they think there could be a better way. Without asking, they may not feel like they have the opportunity to speak up. So I'm going to write that down. All right, I like lead by example. I don't know if it applies in all these circumstances, but it certainly does apply in some. So I'll write that down. Lead by example. And the other one was ask questions. Yeah. George says, you should make them feel comfortable with the workflow in general and not be rigid. Then they should own the thing. And George, I should say, you're using he here, I think, by single example. Oftentimes, this is multiple people that I never even see. It's several degrees of separation. I don't know who the people are in some cases. Then own the thing by themselves, and either if the method is right or wrong, they should own it and show you why it makes sense doing it that way or the other. Make them feel comfortable with the workflow in general and not be rigid. Yeah, I think this could apply specifically. I think maybe I'm working with when I'm working with specific individual independent contractors. Um, I think that does make sense, George. Chad says maybe there could be a conversation with the contractor at the start of the project. Maybe before they start, you can ask if they would be open to constructive criticism as they are working. Maybe then it shouldn't be as much of a shock when you feel the need to speak up. Yeah, I think that's a good point to talk to. And there has to be some responsibility. If I'm contracting out to a service, there has to be some responsibility on that service themselves or the person in charge of the employees. Near says it's about creating a work culture where people are encouraged to challenge what they are told and be creative and take initiative when something doesn't work. I mentioned this in most part in my large team meetings. And when I interview, I also say this as an expectation with candidates. I totally agree with that. Yeah. Again, in this circumstance, I'm a few degrees separated from it. It's a little bit hard to, but I guess even when I'm a few degrees separated, there is the possibility to create some sort of culture of innovation and openness. Yeah. And part of this is I want to reward when someone finds a better way. So letting people know that, hey, there's a reason for you to find a better way. I want to recognize that and celebrate it. I do have another question of the day too. If this is boring for some of you, Beverly says typically I'm not an assertive person, and when I feel free to share my ideas and observations in a work environment, it's when leadership routinely invites ideas and thoughts and the response in a way that in a respectful manner. I like that a lot, Beverly. That tags onto the idea of asking questions and inviting ideas, and then as you said, actually listening to those ideas and responding to them in a respectful way, not shooting them down. Because I think for anyone who takes the risk of speaking up, if they're immediately shot down or treated disrespectfully, they're probably not going to speak up again. Yeah, I really like that you mentioned that. The response is important. Ivan asked if the camera's in a different place than normal. No, same place as normal. Sometimes I'm standing up right now. I'm at a sit stand desk, so sometimes you might see the camera at a lower angle, so you're seeing a different part of the room. But yeah, same camera as always. Brian says, given the 2 or 3 step separation from the worker or workers, sorry, Facebook, see, keep scrolling as I'm reading these. You might also need to train the trainer by sharing this with your contractor and then maybe trying to work with them to empower the front line. Yeah, train the trainer is a good way to put it. Yeah. I can hear my stomach gurgling. Somehow I'm already hungry. Walter woke me up a little bit early today. One of my cats woke me up at 6:30 this morning. A little bit earlier than normal. Ray, let's see if I don't want to miss anything here because you're giving great comments. Sam says he had an experience that might spark further thought. I had a former leader who pulled me aside before a meeting and she let me know she would be testing the group to speak up by assigning a task that could be done better. When no one spoke up, she informed the team that it was a test. And one of my coworkers spoke up out of frustration because the situation felt more like a trap than a test. Yeah, I like that. I've always been of the mindset of honesty, potentially opening with my gut feels like there's a better way to do something. So if they have a better way to handle a task, I'd be in full support of it. So yeah, I like the opening with honesty and transparency there, not making things feel like a test. No traps, no tests, just honesty. I like that. Ray says in his work as an auditor, he's expected to work fairly independently and come to one of the manager's partners when he has questions. I second what everyone else has been saying about openness and feedback and questions. My managers have been quite good with accepting feedback and answering questions. I think making that clear from the start of a project goes a long way. Yeah, I totally agree with that, Ray. I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm also trying to apply this, even though there's a specific situation scenario that I'm thinking about. I'm also trying to think of it in terms of individual independent contractors that I work with, and even my employees too. Like I always want them to feel free to speak up if they think there's a better way. And I definitely think of certain circumstances where I maybe have gotten more curt than I intended with someone who speaks up with a good idea, and it often I think it I recognize in myself that I think the time that it happens the most often is when it's something that I've already done or that I've already tried. I think maybe there's a little bit of ego there where someone is saying an idea and not realizing that I've already done it. and maybe a little bit of my ego comes out and I want to show them, hey, I already thought of that thing. I already did that thing. And I need to check that part of myself and be better at acknowledging that idea, even if I have already done it, but acknowledge it instead of shooting it down and being like, hey, that was a great idea. In some ways, it was so great that I already did it. And here are the results. Like you can actually see the results of the idea that you already implemented. Um, that's something I definitely need to be more aware of in myself because I know I've done that a few times. Near says, to your circumstance, let's see if I miss, yeah, to your circumstance, whenever you interview and choose the first level you engage with, set this to be the expectation and tell them independent thought will be rewarded. I like that. Yeah, back to kind of training the trainer. And yeah, I like that. President says, probably asked this before, will all printed copies of Expeditions have the error with location 16 having a value of 5 for corruption? Not that big of an issue, just curious. Yeah, so we did discover during a very recent play of Expeditions last week, actually, when I was showing to my team, that one of the northern locations, all of which are supposed to have a value of 8 plus corruption, has 5 plus corruption. Fortunately, this is not a problem. Like you just play the game as it is. Like when that tile comes up, you will seed it with 5 plus corruption instead of 8 plus. Totally fine to do that. Doesn't break the game in any way. Prezimek is asking, are all copies printed that way? And the answer is yes. They are all printed that way. I think if I can fit it in a future expansion, I probably will replace that tile just so I can have what was intended to be in there. But it is, as errors go, fortunately, is very minor. It really does not impact the game at all. You probably wouldn't even notice unless I said it to you. Or if you did notice that all of the northern locations have 8 plus corruption and all the central locations have 5 plus. But yeah, it is already printed in all the games. There are certain issues that might be worth stopping the press. This is not one of them though. So I think in maybe the third printing of the game, we will fix that if we get that far. If people love the game so much that we continue to reprint it, I hope that is the case. We'll fix it in that version. But yeah. George says, I think the key is a well-defined communication between both parties at each step of the process. As often as you can, be open, ask questions, and try to get feedback and receive feedback often. And George, I think you touch upon the idea of repetition here, that it's not just asking questions once, but also maybe once a month or every now and then checking in and being like, hey, here's what's going on? How are things going? Like, can we do something better? Can you do something better? James says, are the briefs clear enough? Do you have some examples of what success looks like? Do you have milestones early on to course correct? Yeah, those are good questions, James. Good questions to ask. I totally agree. I really want to give the example here of what it is because it doesn't exactly apply to what you're saying there, but what would be an example of this that I could give that isn't? So it's one of these things where, and this is perhaps part of the problem. You're saying, what do you have examples of what success looks like, and can you provide those? I think that's a great thing to do. Like show independent contractors or whoever you're working with, this is what a best case scenario looks like. But I think that the problem is sometimes the examples given aren't clear enough, or they aren't. Or they don't cover every situation, or the mistake is in the way the task is presented itself, or someone somewhere along the line, someone's getting a different instruction, or they're pulling in an instruction from someone else. Again, I need to think of an example that doesn't give away what I'm talking about. Maybe something that applies to me, but I'm struggling to think of an example here. But I like where you're going. I like where your head is, James. I like where you're headed with that. Yeah. Michael, sorry, Michael, I'm so deep into the conversation. So the question is about how to enable independent contractors and even people working under independent contractors to speak up when they realize that there's a better way to do something. Or when the way that they're doing something, and oftentimes the way that they are being instructed to do something, is not the best way to do it. And it is even a bad way to do it. Rather than just doing it because that's what they've been told. How can I inspire people that are multiple layers away from me to speak up? Yeah, and find a better way. Chad says, when I was an art director of a licensed t-shirt company, every time we would acquire a new license, I would have a brainstorming session with the art team to get multiple ideas for shirt designs. I always found that my team was open to giving suggestions. I'm not sure if your situation would be right for this, but maybe a brainstorming meeting would help them feel like they can speak up. Yeah, having I don't love meetings, but you're right that sometimes that could be a great environment to get people to speak up. Patrick also says that he enjoyed the watch it play video that was there. Luke says, thanks for being so good at engaging with the community. Also, I recently had a question. Thank you, Luke, for saying that. I also had a question from a game tester, and I got a little defensive, but then gave my head a little shake and realized I hadn't given that aspect much thought and needed to look at it. Yeah, Luke, I've definitely done the same thing while playtesting, or while getting playtest feedback, because sometimes my initial response can be like, oh, I already tried that and it didn't work. But I think it's good for me to remind myself whenever I think that I may have tried it in a completely different situation, a completely different version of the game, and this suggestion might be really valid for the current version of the game. So changing gears a little bit, I did have one other question of the day for you all, and I have some other topics to cover as well as usual. In fact, I would say last week we talked a lot about branching paths in games. Maybe that was last week or the week before. And also we talked about seasonal aspects to games and menus. And you may have seen last week, both of those things went into videos and blog posts. So I had a blog post last week about seasonal menus, seasonal changes, and seasonal like modes, things like that. And I also had a video about branching paths in games. So your notes here in these discussions really do have an impact on the content I create, and I'm very grateful for that. I'll read a few other responses to this topic, and then I'll bring up the next topic. And feel free to still pop in and say your thoughts. James says that every quarter you can do a debrief. What should we keep doing and what should we stop doing? What can we do better next time? Oh, I really like those, James. So keep doing, stop doing, and do better. Yeah, I like that a lot. Awesome. And Michael says, speaking as a teacher in a large secondary English department, the key for us to balance out the experience and the personalities. Sometimes our new hires are full of ideas, but they tend to hang back for fear of appearing too cocky. Yeah, I can see that. New person in the room. I know that I, as the most experienced teacher in the department, and just that sort of personality, tend to dominate and drive a lot of our ideas on the team that I'm on. So Michael's saying, he's acknowledging that maybe he needs to step back a little bit and encourage others to speak up. And then the key is to put yourself forward in a self-deprecating way whenever you can to show that you don't view yourself as a paragon of competence. Absolutely. That and always providing a lot of positive reinforcement for the good ideas that people have had in the past. When a graduate teacher has a great idea, I make a point of encouraging them to present it to the whole team and to enable them and to set their confidence free. And actually, Michael, I think what you're talking about also applies to teaching games. Like I found that when I'm teaching games, if someone asks a question, not to shoot them down, not to say I'll get to that later, or I've already explained that, or that doesn't matter yet. To kind of acknowledge the question, even if one of those things is kind of true, to acknowledge the question and then answer it at the right time, or answer a part of it and then come back to it later, can make a big difference. And also, while teaching, when people make like a clever play, as you started to play the game, to acknowledge that, to highlight that, because I think that can help people continue to play the game as they're learning it. Carol says, just popped in. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you too, Carol. And Carol, her comment, for some reason, reminded me of my chocolate of the day. Today I'm going with, it's a little post-Easter right now. So Megan picked up a bunch of the small Cadbury eggs with the hard, crunchy shell, the chocolate eggs, at a very nice discount recently. And so we have been munching on quite a few of those, and they're delicious. So that is my chocolate of the day today. James says, as a group with all team members, you can do it anonymously as well, so everyone has a chance to voice their opinions. That's better. So the other question of the day I had was, I want your thoughts. So I've noticed a little bit of a trend recently, and I'm not judging the trend at all. I'm just deciding whether or not I should do a video like this. But I've seen a number of content creators do videos about if they could only pick 10 games for their collection. So if they had to get rid of all their collection except for 10 games, which games would they pick? And what I want to ask you is, do you find those videos interesting? Like, is that a compelling question that you want content creators to answer, including myself? And why? I guess is what I'm wondering. Like why? Because for some reason, I found there's certain types of videos that I just don't engage with all that much, and it might just be personal preference. But I need to decide if that's just me or if there is interest in those types of videos and I should make them. That's one of them. Like uh, if I could only own 10 games, that's a video. Like is I guess I'm wondering when I see those videos, they don't really help me all that much as a person decide what games I want to pursue or what games I am interested in. But maybe they should. One of them is also videos about anticipated games. I don't know. For some reason, the anticipated videos or lists don't really do much for me. Like I want to know about the game after someone has actually played it, not when they're just thinking about playing it. And the other one is what was the other one? And these are all positive videos. Like I like excitement. I just don't get excited about those types of videos. What was the other one? Um, yeah, 10 games in the. Yeah, I'll think of the other one if I can. But yeah, those two definitely come to mind. Like top 10 games that I'm anticipating, and the 10 games. If I had to get rid of everything in my collection except for 10 games, what would those 10 games be? I know there's another category I'm forgetting here. But I'm curious what you think about those videos. Do you? Oh no, the other one. Yes, the other one's unboxing videos. I hardly ever watch unboxing videos, but they seem to get a ton of views. People love unboxing videos for some reason. In fact, I did one for Scythe. I did an unboxing video. No, for Expeditions. I did one of those recently. But I think people were just curious about Expeditions because they knew nothing about it at that point. So yeah, do you enjoy those videos? Do you enjoy unboxing videos? Do you enjoy the 10 games that if I had to get rid of everything else in my collection, just keep 10 games? Do you enjoy those? And do you enjoy videos where people talk about the games that they're anticipating, that they're excited about, but they haven't actually played yet? And why? Let me know why. And if you want me to make any videos like that, I'm happy to consider it. So back to the other question about enabling and inspiring independent contractors in particular that are at least one step removed to speak up when there's a better way to do something. George says, how about taking a small thing and by example, put it in a good light to offer some motivation and encourage them to take initiative more on their own? Yeah, I like that. Highlight a small thing and encourage them to do that better. Yeah. Michael says, I think if you do any sort of debrief too, that it needs to be truly empowering and not empowering because it gives you a chance to reflect on what you're doing wrong. Yeah, that's a good point. Like it isn't uh, it isn't a veiled approach to let the person know what they're not doing well. Carol says, have you thought any more about seasonality in Stomar games? The conversation you've started about it has been interesting so far. I have thought more about it, Carol. Yeah, a few options have come up that I really, really liked. One is the idea of declaring temporary rules for games that are seasonal. A good example of this that a shareholder brought up was to say, okay, for the next 3 months, if you want to play by this rule, whenever you play Scythe, the rivers are frozen. So the rivers are frozen. So you can cross over rivers when you play Scythe right now because it's winter time. It's the winter season. But you have to use an extra move to cross those rivers. Something like that. So like a seasonal rule for the game. I think that would apply well to pretty much any of our games. Could apply well. I don't know if it exactly works for viticulture because viticulture has seasons built into it. That was one option that we might explore. The other one that I thought of, or maybe that I heard someone say, was to have seasons where we focus on certain games, where we say, okay, this is the season of viticulture and pendulum and rolling realms. This is the season for those games. And we do special things that are maybe somewhat seasonal related, or maybe it's just like right now, these are the games that we're really focusing on. And just have like divide games into seasonal segments where we really focus on them in some way. We spotlight them. I don't know. We do special stuff for them, special sale, something like that. So and make that kind of an annual thing where like every year, like that winter is the season for Scythe or Expeditions. Expeditions is set in a cold environment, so maybe that's winter is the Expeditions season, along with a few other games, and that seasonal approach. I don't know. Yeah, it has definitely inspired me. We're going to do something with it. I just don't know exactly what yet. Okay, so Michael's talking about anticipated games. He says, I already know what I anticipate. Maybe that sort of video is good for people that very new to the hobby. Maybe, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, that's a good point, Michael. I need to keep in mind that people are coming to these videos with different areas of that might be the only content creator they follow, so it makes a big difference for them. Ray says, that's an interesting thought experiment. I don't find anticipation videos very interesting since such speculation is meaningless until people have actually played the game. That's kind of my thought when I see those videos. But at the same time, Ray, I should point out that a lot of people do ask me, like on these videos, especially at the end of the year, people ask me like, what game are you really looking forward to? Or what game of 2023 are you the most excited about? And I rarely have anything to answer them. I don't know. Like it isn't information that I keep track of in my head, so it's really hard for me to answer those questions. But people are asking it, so maybe it is something that people are curious about, certain people that they follow at least. George says, what are your thoughts about paperback adventures? Have you tried it? I have played paperback, but I haven't looked into the paperback adventures yet. Word and letter games, I appreciate that awesome versions of those games exist. I don't often get excited about them. My brain doesn't work very well with them, so I haven't dug any deeper into it. Carol says the 10 games Desert Island videos are interesting. People seem to take different approaches to them. So like if you could only take 10 games to Deserted Island, if you could only have 10 games in your collection. So Carol likes it. Justin says, is it discouraging to see reviews and rankings on BGG for expeditions from people who have clearly not played the game yet or seem to have an agenda? How do you combat that? Justin, I have almost long since tried to let go of that. Because, yeah, it was baffling very early on when I started to release games. I was like, no one's played Euphoria yet except for playtesters, and they haven't even played the final version of it. So I know that people ranking the game on Board Game Geek haven't played it. And it's a whole thing now. It's a whole, like, subculture on BGG that people rate the game low because they're not excited by it or because they don't like one thing they heard about it or they for whatever reason. And then there's the people who counteract that with 10 ratings because they want to counteract the people who are voting 1. And then there are people who see that and they chime in and they vote 1 because they want to counteract the 10s. It's a whole thing. I really wish that I think for me, I only rate games after I play them. And I wish more people would do that because I think that's the best way. Like the whole point of the rankings, the ratings, is to help people decide what games are potentially appealing to them or can be appealing to them. And I guess that's subjective in many different ways. I guess you can form an opinion about a game without actually playing it, but it is a little annoying. So Justin, I don't combat that. I try not to think about it. I definitely don't try to encourage anyone to rank anything before they've actually played the game. But I also do encourage people after they do play a game to rank it. Or if you ever play a game and you have a very different impression of it than the first time you played it, to consider changing your rating or updating it for better or for worse. Either way, they can go either way. I try to remind myself of that as well. But I don't rate any game on Board Game Geek until I've actually played it once. Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. Tyler says, I think getting rid of all but 10 games videos are entertaining, but I enjoy them. Okay, awesome to hear. But they don't have a big effect on what I buy. I do agree that I don't tend to watch anticipation or unboxing videos. And really, again, I appreciate you sharing this. Feel free to share any opinion here. Like I'm truly I'm saying this as someone who doesn't get excited about these types of videos. But if they are videos that other people get excited about, then I'll consider making it. Like it would be a fairly easy video for me to make. Some of these videos take a long time for me to cultivate the top 10 list. Figuring out 10 games for my collection to keep, I think would be fairly easy, especially since all I have to do is actually just look at my collection. Let's see. Casimir says that feels like a standard top 10 list with arbitrary scarcity applied. Yeah, because you're only looking at your actual collection. Personally, I'm more interested in videos that pose provocative questions, such as why you should understand and learn this game even if you don't like this type of game. That's interesting. That's an interesting approach. I like that. Justin says, any chance you saw a spike in pre-orders yesterday after Rodney posted a how to play video of expeditions? I know seeing it laid out and convinced by Rodney was convincing for me, Justin. Justin said this. Yeah, so Rodney is an interesting content creator in that, like, it's a paid service. So we pay Rodney to create a rules video. And so part of that is that I know Rodney is really good at explaining rules. So it is a great service for people who want to watch his videos to learn a game by watching a video instead of reading the rule book. I think that's great, or complimenting the rule book at least. So I think that's part of it. It's a service to people that we are paying for that service. Part of it also is helping people decide if the game is a good fit for them. So it is a marketing expense as well. Rodney is showing you everything about the game. You can watch that video. You can probably now understand how the game works and decide, oh, this game is a good fit for me, and it isn't, or it isn't a good fit for me. And the nice part about Rodney is that Rodney has a huge following. I think there are over 300,000 subscribers on Watch It Played. So, Justin, to answer your question, yes, we did see pre-orders instantly go up yesterday after Rodney's video went live. Um, I don't think they've quite paid for the cost of the video yet. It's worth every dollar for both reasons that I mentioned here. But yeah, actually no, we probably have. But yeah, orders definitely went up after that video went live. And the nice thing about Rodney's videos is that they're there forever. People still tune into Rodney's video about how to play Scythe, how to play Wingspan, how to play. I think he has a viticulture video. Yeah, he definitely does actually. So they're there forever. They're there to serve people forever, which I think is awesome. And Rodney is also there forever to answer questions and to pull me in sometimes and say, hey, Jamey, I don't know the answer to this. Can you answer this? It's truly an incredible service that he provides, and his team now. It's not just Rodney anymore. Corey's popping in. He says it might be a good idea to remind folks that Geekway to the West badges end this Friday, April 21st, and after that, there's no way to attend. No door sales. Thank you, Corey, for saying that. Two things happening on April 21st. One is that is the retail release date for Tapestry Fantasies and Futures. So if you pre-ordered Fantasies and Futures, the new Tapestry expansion from your local retailer, they can actually give it to you on Friday, finally. The other thing, as Corey mentioned here, that Geekway to the West is happening in mid-May. It's a convention here in St. Louis where you just play a lot of games for 4 days, including games if you want to play games with me. In fact, I posted, if someone can find it, here, I'll find it, post it in the comments. I posted my list of the games that I am the most excited to play at Geekway 2023. And if you own or love or have access to any of these games and want to play with me, want to teach it and play it with me, I'm a fast learner, I promise, then I want to play those games with you, or I want to play one game with you at Geekway. I'd like to spread it around and play with a bunch of different people. But as Corey said, you can't buy tickets after this Friday. So you need to make your Geekway decision by this Friday if you actually want to attend. So, and I highly recommend it. I know it's a vacation. It's a long weekend. It's a lot of gaming, but I look forward to it every year. I love Geekway. It's a wonderful time. And odds are you're probably going to walk away with a game from Geekway that maybe you won for free from the Play and Win section, because they have a very robust Play and Win section that they invest heavily in. They reach out to a bunch of different publishers. They also buy games that they want to fill in the Play and Win collection, that the games that they think that people will be excited to play. They do an amazing job at Geekway. Chad says, I think any preference content is good, mainly so I can see if the content creator's tastes line up with my own. I can use that as a guide to my future list. So Chad's talking about, like, even if it's a video that maybe he isn't super excited about, that it's still showing a preference, and that can let him connect with that, decide if he does connect with that creator or not. Chad says, if my tastes line up with theirs, I can put more weight behind their future list. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, I like that. Okay, James' thoughts on these types of videos. When I think about you as a brand, I think of you as an authority figure, creating games business leadership. When I think about that type of content, it's more for fans or reviewers. I can see that, James. That's a good differentiation, James. You're right. My videos, I'm not a reviewer. I am mostly talking to other, at least in many of my videos, I'm talking to other game designers. And I think other people, just gamers, might gain some value from those videos too. They might see me talk about a favorite mechanism and be like, oh, I love that mechanism too. I want to try that game. But for the most part, I'm talking to game designers. And a video about the 10 games of my collection that I want to keep doesn't really speak to other game designers in any way. But maybe it does in a way they're not realizing. Carol says, very cool. On the seasons thing, I definitely associate viticulture with summer and vacations. That's true. Even though there's seasons, there is an association there. Wingspan with spring and Scythe with winter. Yeah, I like those delineations there, Carol. Beverly says, I thought Tapestry would be my next Stonemaier game, but with all this talk about expeditions, that might change. It's up to you, Beverly. Yeah, I guess the pro for Tapestry is that you can get it today. You get it right away and have it for the next few months. We're still in the middle of April, so we have still a few months until Expeditions is going to arrive at fulfillment centers, unless freight shipping goes super, super well, which is somewhat unlikely in this day and age, but... yeah, so you could wait a few months for Expeditions, or you could try out Tapestry. You can even try out Tapestry on Board Game Arena first to see if it's a good fit for you. It is there on Board Game Arena right now. I mentioned the college reunion a little bit. The one I guess, odd highlight that happened, or scary highlight that happened during the college reunion, is that there was a pretty big tornado warning in St. Louis. A few tornadoes touched down throughout St. Louis on the evening that there was going to be a big gathering, and there still was a big gathering for my college, WashU. I wasn't going to it, but I hosted my friends over before that gathering for a little happy hour. And during that happy hour was the worst time of the storm, and so we actually went down to my basement, and my neighbor let us into her finished basement. We're on the third floor; she's on the first floor, and so we went down to her place and just hung out for a little bit while the tornado passed. Didn't actually come close to our area, but it wasn't too far away. So we had a little bit of tornado excitement this past weekend with the college reunion. Let's see what else is going on. I'm doing a lot of playtesting and working through playtest reports for various games and expansions, accessories, things like that. And also slowly working through the revisions, the proofreading revisions to the Tapestry civilizations, the adjusted civilizations. So still working on those, but doing pretty well getting through those. Also had some fun brainstorming some new games with some potential co-designers recently. I don't always work with co-designers for new games, but in a few specific instances, I think I'm having fun with that brainstorming process. Yeah, I think. Oh, and also two things that I'm consuming right now that I'm enjoying. We just finished Dollhouse season one, and we just started season two. I really really liked Dollhouse season one. It was even a few episodes in, it became like it moves pretty quickly. It didn't try to stretch things out. A lot of stuff happened within 13 episodes of Dollhouse. Older show that I definitely would recommend. I am also tearing through the new book Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. Fonda Lee is probably best known for her Jade City, the Jade Wars, Jade City, Green Bone saga, the Green Bone saga. Amazing author. And she's actually coming to town, coming to St. Louis tomorrow for a book reading in St. Charles. So for her new book, Untethered Sky. So I'd highly recommend the book, Untethered Sky. And if you're in St. Louis or St. Charles, I'd recommend checking out the reading on tomorrow night, Thursday night. Let's see. Patrick says, interesting on the seasons thing. I've seen some digital hybrid games do this because they can just insert content. You're right. It's easier for digital hybrid games to do that. But it makes you realize you don't need an app. Also, younger audiences are used to season passes with digital online games, might find it very natural. Yeah, I talked about that a little bit in terms of Marvel Snap in the blog post last Thursday. The idea of season passes and what that might mean for a game. Like I don't even know exactly yet what that might mean. I'm trying to find a way to do it in such a way that that it doesn't cost anyone anything. That doesn't cost much at all. I guess if it costs us a little bit to create a little bit of art or something, that's cool. But seasonal passes are often geared around like, hey, pay for this season and you get the special content for that season. Kind of looking to avoid that unless it's something really cool and fun and engaging. Then I might consider it. Michael says he won't even rate a game as a playtester until it's out. No one believes you. And Michael, I think that's true. No one does believe you, and I think that's good. Even playtesters who playtest like the final version of the prototype, that's still going to be different than the final version of the game. Like playing with the real components, that is a different experience than playing with the final prototype. So I appreciate playtesters waiting until they play the final version of the game to rate it. David's popping in to say hi. He says not usually here, but he's able to pop in today. David, thanks for joining us. Michael says, I'm anticipating a cat coming and sitting on that mat by your window right about now. No one stopped by today. I think they're cozying up on the bed today. I'm getting to my link now that I post. Mark is popping in to say hi. No, it's very late at night for Mark right now. Carol says, have you considered asking Rodney to make a new Tuscany video? His original video about the original Tuscany can be a little confusing. That's true, Carol. It can be a little confusing. Maybe I should. I'm kind of debating that in my head, but I will debate it on paper later to see what I think about that. There is a cost to it for sure, but if it is confusing, and also Rodney's time is limited. He has a lot of projects, so it's quite possible we may have even had that discussion back in the day at some point. But yeah, worth maybe talking about because Tuscany is one of our most successful expansions. We continue to reprint it on an ongoing basis, and if that would be an asset to people or helpful to people, we might want to consider that. Yeah, I appreciate that idea. Nathan says, I saw the expeditions How to Play and Watch It Played, and I'm getting excited for this. Yeah, for this summer. Me too. Me too. I'm really excited. In fact, I don't even have a copy of Expeditions right now because I gave my copy to be taken to the Gamma trade show, the Gamma Expo. It's a convention kind of geared towards retailers and distributors. So they have my copy. They're taken to that. My team does. Michael says, I prefer your curated list of mechanisms that you love in a game. And I enjoy that too, Michael. That's my favorite thing to do. Talk about aspects of the games that I love. But I can still do that if I did a video about like the games that are on my shelf, the top 10 games on my shelf or something like that, or games that I want to keep. If I can only keep 10 games. Actually, and the other thing that I think that I just don't that doesn't resonate with me about those videos is there are probably circumstances where I could only literally keep 10 games, but they're unlikely, and I don't really want to think about those circumstances because they seem kind of dire. Um, uh, and so it's not a scenario that I get excited to think about. Although again, I think that the core idea, as I'm looking over here at my collection, is in some ways what are the 10 games in your collection that you love so much and that scratch different itches that you would keep, and that maybe there's a twist on that I can go into what those different itches are for me. Rob says he agrees with Chad. The videos help see if our gaming tastes are similar, so future recommendations from that content creator will have more impact, and or I will seek out that creator's videos for games. And that, yeah, that definitely makes sense. Yeah. Casimir says that Dice Tower's top 10s and top 100s are fun because they have good natured arguments with each other, whereas when it's just me talking, it's just me talking to the camera. I think any sort of ranking should be the start of a conversation as opposed to the final word. And Casimir, that's a good point that I'd love to have more guests when I do top 10 videos. And maybe this is a good reason for me to revisit older top 10 videos, but have a guest on for those top 10 videos. And that way have a little bit of discussion about them, revisit my list, maybe update it. In fact, I'm going to do a video soon about deck building. I've already done a video about deck building games, and maybe I should have a guest on for that list so that we can discuss it together and have a little bit of interaction, a little bit of conversation there. Uh, okay, Beverly says Board Game Arena. I'm always here to learn something when I'm here on Wednesday. Looking into it now. And thank you so much for the solo Sunday Viticulture Tuscany to you at Board Game Garden. Thank you, Beverly, for asking for that. And yeah, Board Game Arena is it's a digital game website platform where many of the games are free. They are all geared around playing against human opponents. And so you can either find other friends who want to play, or you can play against random strangers on the platform. There's also a paid version of it where you can pay around like $5 a month, which I gladly play because there's access to so many different games, and you get access to certain games that aren't available for free on the platform that way. But yeah, it's a really helpful, nice web-based platform. I use it for game night every other week. I host a game night every other Wednesday where we just play games on Board Game Arena, and it's a very smooth, easy to use platform in my opinion. Michael says a video for the 10 mechanisms I could keep in gaming if I were only allowed to keep 10. I do have a video that's around that, kind of around that topic, like my top 10 favorite mechanisms and my favorite games for each of those mechanisms. Chad says, curious if you asked Jakob to hold back on showing too much of the new art that he made for Expeditions. I follow him on ArtStation, and I would really like to take a closer look at the many new pieces. At this point, Jakob has free reign to do it. I kind of asked him to do that before we announced Expeditions, but at this point, he can share whatever art he wants, and feel free to let him know that. I think he gets excited about sharing art that he's worked on. He even has some short little videos and GIFs showing the process and how he went from a sketch to the final illustration, which I think are pretty cool. Wow, almost out of time already. I feel like I've barely been here. Rob says, I followed your recommendation, and now I am almost done with the fifth book in Red Rising. Currently the final book in Red Rising. There's more coming. He says, I really enjoyed them. Do you have any other recommendations for series that you've liked? So it's a slightly different genre. I mean, because that's kind of like the sci-fi space opera. Oh yeah, I actually do. I have a lot of recommendations, Rob. One that's coming to mind because I'm thinking about Fonda Lee right now is Fonda's series, The Green Bone Saga, Jade City, Jade War. I think Jade City is the first book. They're definitely different than Red Rising, but I think they're incredible. I highly recommend them, that you check those out. So Jade City, I think, is the first book in that series, worth checking out. Other books like Red Rising, I'm terrible at coming up with books on the top of my head, but I do have like lists of favorite books that I really enjoy. I'm trying to think if there's another sci-fi slash dystopia series that I loved. I mean, Red Rising, it's at the top of my list. Like I love Red Rising so much, so it's hard to get one right up there with Red Rising. But actually, this is a good reminder, Rob. I should do more videos that are like, if you like this, you'll also like this. I do them for all of Stonemaier games, but I don't do that enough for other games as well that I really love. I need to do more of that. Rob says it doesn't necessarily need to be similar, just a good series. So any Brandon Sanderson series, the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson, I love. The Way of Kings is a big epic series. I really love those, and the Green Moon saga from Fonda Lee. I would highly recommend. Yeah. Melissa says, what about the Anne McCaffrey Cassandra books? The books are very good. I have not read Anne McCaffrey since like reading one of her dragon books a long time ago, but I need to read more of them. Oh, okay. Miles mentions a great one here. Yes, Miles, I'm glad you said this. The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. Very similar to Red Rising. Very different topic, very different world, but has a very similar feel, and the writing is very similar. Great recommendation there, Miles. Yeah, The Rage of Dragons, I believe, is the name of the book. I'll look that up while we're talking real quick. It's definitely Evan Winter. Rage of Dragons. Rage of Dragons. Rage of Dragons. It kind of has like a fish out of water story to it. The Rage of Dragons. Yeah, The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. It's awesome. I can't wait for book 3, honestly. I really look forward to that. So Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. Right now I'm reading Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. I'm hoping that it'll be a series. Currently it's just a standalone book as far as I know, but I'm really enjoying that so far. And that's a very new book. Casimir says, do I have a dream IP you'd love to make a game for? That dream IP was Red Rising. So I got to make my dream IP game in Red Rising. I don't know if there's another one quite at that height. But there are. What it would probably be is another book series that I really love that has a pretty decently sized audience that I also want more people to discover. Yeah. Gerald says, someone on your website asked if you would reprint a second edition of Nations now that the designers have the rights back. Would you? I love that combination. I saw that. I haven't replied to that comment yet, but I do see that comment. I'm choosing how to reply to it because the answer is probably no. I don't think it's a good fit for me. I do appreciate what Nations does, but as I was playing Nations, I was thinking, I wish I had a Civ game that wasn't limited to real world history. And I designed it and published it in Tapestry. So we already have the Civ game that I want in the Stonemaier Games lineup. And I appreciate Nations. I actually have more fun with Nations Dice, though. Like if I had to choose between Nations and Nations Dice, I would probably play Nations Dice first. But again, we already have a Civ game that I think that I'm really proud of and that I want to share with people. So I think throwing another one out there isn't something that we pursue. But it is a good signal for any publishers listening or watching along that the Nation's rights are available and that someone could probably do an awesome job with bringing it back to life. Melissa says, I want to see you do a Halloween or spooky game that is not co-op. Expeditions is pretty spooky. Look at the art in Expeditions. You might scratch that itch with Expeditions, Melissa. We hate co-op, but I need games for my annual Halloween game each year. I think Expeditions might fit that bill. Yeah, it's spooky. It's a little creepy. It's a little weird. Yeah. Chad says, I do want you to make a dark matter or recursion game that deals with time or mirror universes. Yeah, alternate universes, time. Yeah, Blake, I do really enjoy Blake Crouch, Chad. I'm really grateful you got me into that author. I enjoy all of his books. Well, I should probably take off in a minute because I have to get lunch ready and head off to play Stroganoff in a few minutes. But I really appreciate all of you joining me today and answering these questions, sharing your suggestions, your thoughts. I really do appreciate it. And, I started off with the question about like if there's ever a way to do something better. And I want to leave that question open to you. If there's something that we're doing at Stonemaier Games or that I'm doing with this content or anything that I create that you think I can do better, let me know. If there's something that I'm repetitively doing in a way that could be better, let me know somewhere. I want to hear your feedback, and I'm open to hearing it and open to improving. All right. Hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next Wednesday, April 26th. Take care. Bye.